are we gonna just claim that like, oh no, they made all this up as a fun story, a big fantasy? I find that to be a bit bullshit, just because of me making fantasy. It is fantastical, it is made up in some ways, but the truth in which it fucking connects to, in my fantasy, has eerie similarities to their fantasy, right? Like the Celtic fantasies, if you want to call it fucking that, the mythology. If there's also some historical truth within my book that I've accidentally stumbled upon, then that means they did too. We are all writing about a forgotten point in our history that is somehow stuck within our mind. It's somehow stuck within us, and we don't know it, but we do. And so we're filling in the blank with everything we do know, and that becomes cultural. But I think that's what we're filling in the blanks with. There's an original story template that happened to the human race, and we have the foggiest glimpse of it. But all we have is this, and this is our culture, and all we know that did happen, and we're like, well, that's gotta be it, and then that becomes this mythology. Okay, I have some crazy shit I want to get off my mind here. Alright, so I'm reading that book, History of Ireland, right? Ireland. And it states, through the years accounted by the Jews, Anno Mundi, in the year of our the world or whatever the fuck. So it starts at the beginning. It says it was first discovered here. It was these first people in the year 1956. Anno Mundi. And I was like, what the fuck's that mean? So I had to see if I could translate that. And that's roughly 1805 or something like that BC. So roughly not much, 2,000 years before the birth of Christ, right? I can wrap my head around that. It's kind of strange that they chose Anno Mundi as opposed to the Gregorian shit, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there that I don't understand. Now, I'm only talking about the time thing, because there's more crazy shit in that book. But I was like, fucking hey, man. Like, okay, to get a grasp on all this shit, I'm like, when was 𝑶𝒓 𝑯𝒊𝒔𝒕𝒉, they think? When was that constructed? So I was like, just to get a basis of like what the time I'm dealing with here. The founding of Ireland by, you know, these people, as opposed to that. And it says 𝑶𝒓 𝑯𝒊𝒔𝒕𝒉 was believed to be dated around the 9th to 10th century, the millennium, 2,000 years. I'm like, the year 9 to 8,000, when they thought like, oh, they're just hunter-gatherers and they're just walking around scooping food off the ground and, you know, hunting animals, and maybe they had villages, and 𝑶𝒓 𝑯𝒊𝒔𝒕𝒉 and all the other ones like it were probably just kind of places where they would kind of worship, and like, oh my god, it's always that stupid shit, right? It's just the dumb shit as always. And like, I'm like, this is 8,000 years before that? And it just clicks in my fucking head. I'm like, dude, like there was a fucking original people, and then there was the flood, and then it was this restart, right? And then it's like, okay, well, the Jews, what about before them? The Jews claim that the world started thousands of years after 𝑶𝒓 𝑯𝒊𝒔𝒕𝒉 was created. How does that work? I'm like, because they're a separate fucking people. And the before people are gone. You know what I mean? Or are still there, but are going away slowly. The creation of the world, and then I think of my book. Wait a minute, if you were an Anaku, you would be like these people, this 𝑶𝒓 𝑯𝒊𝒔𝒕𝒉 and whatever the fuck happens after that. And then it's the Aeon who are like, oh, the year starts here after we leave the forest. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like 9,000 years before you motherfuckers, we were already building cities and shit. And then the Aeonic people are like, the year and the world was created thusly. And it makes so much sense. The Anaku are like this symbol of these before people that there are remnants of, and they're fading from the world. And from that, you have their creation from the Titans, which founded them. And so I'm like, well, then that means that there's like, maybe there's some truth to what I'm fucking stumbling upon with this book. You know, the different races of Aeon represent the different races of us. You know, the Jewish race, and then like this kind of Scythian kind of race, and this African race, or whatever they're fucking called way back, I don't know. And then the Asian one, way back wherever they're fucking called, I don't know. And it's like, that's kind of the basic ones, and then they've started mingling and mixing and stuff, and it gets foggy and gets unclear because we didn't record shit properly. And then I guess it just, in my mind, I see these connections, and I was creating this stuff because I needed to create it, because I don't know why I needed to create it. But I'm seeing these similarities through other real life things that I didn't even fucking think about or know about. Maybe I kind of like passively knew, you know, like I heard about this, and then, I don't know, I can't really prove anything. I just have no recollection of that. But I got thinking about it. Whoever these original people were, and maybe the people that are before the age of the Jews' recounting of history being whatever the fuck it is. I think if 1956, so 1,900 years, is the year 1,800 BC, what do they think the year the world was created in the world, like the year 2000 something? 2000 whatever, 700 something? I don't fucking know. Let's just type in year 1. And that will be 3760. Okay, so they think the world was created in 3759 or 60 or whatever. Yeah, 3759 or whatever. So what about before that? The year 9000 is before the year 3000. What the fuck did they think happened then? Like that, those people were, they're separate. You see what I mean? And that's what I'm thinking. It's like, it all makes sense. It's like, you know, the Jewish people are the chosen people of God, right? They're God. And they're only going to tell you there's one God. And I'm sitting here wondering, I'm like, there's got to be more. Like, there has to be more gods. Nothing makes sense to say that there's just one. You know, and then Christ comes along. He's like, well, it's the same one, but this are the new rules for all you Gentiles. Here you go. And then make sure you do this. And it's like, and now you can all go to heaven. And I'm like, well, that's just still the one. What about before that? Like all this stuff before, do they think like, well, that was bullshit? That's what confuses me. That, to me, says there's more than one God. And the Jewish God, you know, the Jewish people of today, and the God they worship, is just but one. But one. What is this, Yahweh or something, or Yahweh, or whatever the hell they say? I don't know. I really think there's something to it. And then I go to my book, and I say that Yahweh and the Jewish people, that's like, God damn it, what's his fucking name? It's either Dove or it's Opaque. I don't know yet. And it's like that. But like, what about like all the before stuff? What about the Titans and all that? Well, they made their own fucking people that they found here. Does the book denote some sort of truth in that? It might sound like a madman right now, or I might sound like a madman, but I guess you have to understand where I've come from and all the things that I've discovered, and where I've, you know, all this puzzle piecing shit and the history I've studied and all the weird stuff I've stumbled upon. I can only denote that it's all the same. The book from which I'm creating, there are so many similarities to the real world that I'm starting to wonder if there's something I might be unraveling here that can help me understand the reality of the situation. Because it's just, there's too many. I don't know how well I captured it in all my previous videos. I don't know. I really hope I did a good job, but I guess maybe if you watch them enough and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, there is some sort of connection here. Like, to a degree that I just, you know, to go into it would sound rambly. You know what I mean? Well, then this, then that, then this. Like, I don't know how to stay clear and say concisely that I think the book that I'm making and the other guys with me, I think it's fucking tapping into something. I swear to fucking God, like every time I make something off on my own, I'll just make it off on my own quietly. I'll type away at it, you know, the history of the Titans and all that. And I'll forget about it. And then literally a couple days ago, right here, Jacob was like asking me these questions and he started piecing this stuff together, and through the fucking Titan thing I made, it was already clicking. Things were already happening. All the connections that he had established in his mind separately were already there that I made. And it was like, oh wow, they already work. You know, that happens so much in this book. Like, I'll write this little short story here and then I'll be like, oh, I forgot about it. And then all of a sudden something will come up that either one of them do, and I'm like, oh, I already got it. And we're at this point, like you asked them, at this point, we're just not even amazed. We're just like, yeah, like, well, we are, but like, you know, it's also like, it's a weird feeling. And I just think about all that stuff. And I think about the connections that I found from historical things too. Like the things that I've made just, you know, for fun here and there. And I find out some weird historical truth to it. You know, this weird, or even like mythological truth to it. Like golly, like Ireland and Scotland and Wales and all the Celtic people's myths. And I found like I was already kind of tapping into it, and I didn't even know they existed. I was tapping into it slightly. And we always coin the term like ancestral knowledge, right? Me, Jacob, and Kevin. It's like there's some sort of, your ancestral knowledge is within you and you can access it, right? Kind of like that Assassin's Creed thing, but it's not a fucking, you're not laying on a table and reliving their lives. You're just channeling knowledge gained by, you know, your ancestors, right? I just think there's got to be some sort of connection to it. There has to be. It's too odd. It's too weirdly connecting to each other. And as I was stumbling upon this, you know, like I said, I don't remember if it was 1954 or 56, that they're claiming this person settled in, remember what I said, the son of this, son of this, son of this, son of this, son of Noah, 200 something years after the flood. So what's 200 years before, I don't fucking know. Now I need a calculator because I can't do that math. Let me get the calculator. Let me do the thingies. 278, 1956. So from 1956 minus 278 would have been, would it go back? So 1678. What was happening in 1678? That was the year 2083. In the year 2083 is when the Great Flood happened. 2,000 years into the world's history, the flood happens. Well, you know what? Something weird in the it says in 2736, which was the year 1025 BCE, that the Galatian people found, and from Spain, founded this place, which is after. I don't know, man. 1956. That's crazy. That's when they, in 1805 BC is when they founded Ireland. Well, they were stumbled upon it, but in the year 2083 BC is when the Great Flood happened. Göbekli Tepe was made somewhere around, according to the thing. They think it was made around 9 to 8,000 BCE, to which the flood happened 2,000. I'm not saying this is it because I know nothing about geography and all that shit, but they're all been buried. I mean, what if that's because of the water? I don't fucking know. I'm not going to claim that's what it was. Or it would have had something to do with that, the flood. That's why it was buried. I don't know. I will not claim to know that, but I just think it's fucking nuts, like, to think about it this way. You know, like, you're trained to believe the world's been around for whatever, I don't remember, some millions of years or billion, I don't know. And human history is only being recorded for like hundreds of thousands of years or whatever the fuck they say. I don't really know. I always found that like weird. Like I'd hear these numbers and I wouldn't retain it because I'm like, this is fucking odd. But then I see this stuff and I'm like, fucking, like, this seems to make more sense to me. Are you going to claim that the Earth's only 3,000 whatever years old? There just seems to be something more to what they're talking about. And I don't really, like, between that, but it's like, it clicks in my head more. Like, it's just like, yes, this feels right. Or at least it sounds right. You know, I mean, it can be tough, but because sometimes you don't have context of things, but that's only something you could find out yourself. You can learn your own fucking context. You can figure it out in time. I think this search through histories really led me to a path that I was not ready for. There's a lot to this world that is that we didn't know about. I'm not saying it's like, I'm not gonna like go out and say like it's because these people have hidden it. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't shock me. I'd be like, yeah, it sounds about right. But I just think maybe our ignorance is what's ruining us. I mean, the man in that book literally says some things that I feel sometimes that just blow my fucking mind. With the recounting of history and how it should be, and you know, like he basically said in his own words what I just said, like it's better to trust the people at the time than to have some man of the modern era. Mind you, he said this 200 years ago. The men of the modern era, you know, they're like assumptions about it. I'm like, exactly. I don't care what proofs you have and archaeology or whatever, I don't know. I don't think there's something to it, man. There's something crazy in this fucking world that I don't know how to feel about. And it's just learning from these old sources. I mean, mind you, like Diodorus Siculus is like thousands of years ago, but this guy here is only like 200 plus. And I think his antiquities relying on sources with, I don't know, actually. I emailed someone asking them questions about where these sources might have come from. Hopefully they'll get back to me. But I also think that he got it from the book of the Book of Invasions, which is the story of, oh my god, let's I forgot that word again. Book of Invasions. Oh god, how do you say that? Lebor Gabala Eren. I might have butchered that, but the Book of Invasions is a collection of poems and prose narratives in the Irish language, intended to be a history of Ireland and the Irish from the creation of the world to the Middle Ages. And then again, it was created in the Middle East. It was created in the Middle Ages at some point. What was it, like 1200 or something? I don't know. It was created at that time. Are we gonna just claim that, like, oh no, they made all this up as a fun story, a big fantasy? I find that to be a bit bullshit, just because of me making fantasy. It is fantastical, it is made up in some ways, but the truth in which it fucking connects to, in my fantasy, has eerie similarities to their fantasy, right? Like the Celtic fantasies, if you want to call it fucking that, the mythology. And I'm like, well, if there's also some historical truth within my book that I've accidentally stumbled upon, then that means they did too. We are all writing about a forgotten point in our history that is somehow stuck within our minds, or in our heads, or in our DNA, or whatever the fuck you want to think. It's somehow stuck within us, and we don't know it, but we do. And so we're filling in the blank with everything we do know, and that becomes cultural. So this is about the Irish people. If mine, I don't really know is what kind of peoples and cultural influences are until it's over with, and other people can find out. But I think that's what we're filling in the blanks with. There's an original story template that happened to the human race, and we have the foggiest glimpse of it. But all we have is this, and this is our culture, and all we know that did happen, and we're like, well, that's got to be it, and then that becomes this mythology. I think of the Greeks and stuff. I think of the Thracians and the Mycenaeans, the story of the Trojan Wars and all that. There's got to be a connection there. There has to be. I am like pretty fucking sure of that, just because of the things that I've stumbled upon, and then the wake with what I'm kind of going into these murky waters. And there's a connection. I feel like we're all, like the mythologies in the world, and all the good fantasy, is all tapping into this massive ocean that is our real life history. And we can't infer what that is. We can't determine things from it because it's, I don't know, maybe an analogy would be it's in an unknown language. But we do recognize the illustrations. I don't know though. I can't really claim it. But that's like the only thing that seems to make sense for me. Nothing else really makes sense. And as we venture more and more into the future, do we walk farther and farther away from it because we're choosing to believe a false history, when the real one is around us all the fucking time. And I sometimes wonder, I think I mentioned saying, like, as a writer, I feel like I'm kind of not a preacher or priest, but something of that nature. It's like religious, right? I also kind of feel like it's the people that are writing mythologies, and like, you know, from Homer to Tolkien to whoever else, you know, I think that they're tapping into it somehow, deep within themselves. Are they unlocking it? I feel like I'm doing that too. I feel like I'm tapping into something that I don't know how to explain. And it's leading me to search, is the weird thing. I found, like, I'm getting these books of these old histories and all that, and I'm being led to these books. Why? There's something there. I'll keep updating this every time I find things out, but like, this just happened today, and I like literally was like frozen by that, and then just like jarred by the stuff I'm reading in that book. I'm just like, I'm jarred by it because of the search I've had before it. Like, I'm sure if someone else reads it, like, so, but to me, because of where I've come from before I met to that book, I'm jarred by it. That's all I can say. There's a craziness that it's really hard for me to like comprehend it, you know. I'm just, yeah, I don't know. Wonder who emailed me first. The library did. Oh my God, September 16. Okay. A book sale, September 16th to 17th. Good to know. I will definitely go there. We haven't had in years. I knew it. I was like, we haven't had book sales in years. I'm trying to find old books. Old history books. I don't know. I'll call this video the search through old histories or something. I don't know. The truth in our history. We'll call it that.